Hello, my name is Elliot, and welcome to the first episode of the Hardcore Record. Today, we will be speaking with Rick Barton, who is well known in Boston's music scene across the decades as a member of the Outlets, Dropkick Murphys, Shadow Blasters, Everybody Out, and the Continental. He is now beginning a new adventure of releasing multiple solo albums this year via Rumbar Records. Over the years, I have caught Dropkick Murphys playing in New Jersey, driven up to Rhode Island on a whim to see Rick Barton and the Shadow Blasters, then most recently moving to Massachusetts and catching the Continental play in Plymouth. After some of the shows, I was able to speak with Rick, keep in touch, and share some reviews of his music and performances. When I go to shows nowadays, I look for inspiration and channel my affinity for beat poetry and aim to express what it meant to me. When he shared an early release of his debut solo album, Nowhere Man, this is what I was inspired to write. I always find that Rick Barton has a way of finding moments in life that I knew existed, but only in feeling. Here he is, staring down the barrel of the love of life, finding the most memorable feelings from past relationships and expressing them in awakened truth, with the birth of rock and roll at its heart. So join me as I talk to Rick about his most recent solo projects and music career, and ask him what the music means. All right, so basically, what I was looking to do is, I know you have an incredible back catalog of projects and bands that you've been in, but I figure we'll start with, the Continental Band, which is your current band, and then we can kind of move into a little bit of the solo projects you have coming out. How did the Continental start?
Well, the Continental started when one day I was just playing my acoustic guitar, making up some songs, and I was doing this song. It was called Curious Spell, and my son Steven happened to be walking by. He was about 19 at the time. He goes, "Hey, I like that." And I said, "Oh, really?" I go, "This is like a kind of, I'm just trying to strip down my sound, blah, 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 So, and then, I don't know, a little while later, he said, can me and my friends use some of those songs? We're starting a little band." And I was going, "Wow, that's weird. My son and his friends are going to cover my songs." I said, "Well, why don't I just come down and, you know, we'll do a little jamming just for fun." You know what I mean? So it was me and Steven and Zach and Kyle. And I got down to the room and I was pleasantly surprised at, at, at how good they were. Like, they're really good players. I didn't even know Steven was playing the bass. He had started out on guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and I really didn't even know. I just didn't. I was on the road a lot, and I never saw them. So this was
Yeah.
my first introduction, and they were good. I was like, "Holy crap!" And we pretty much got a small recording deal with Old Shoe Records in California. At the exact same time the Continental was starting, I was also working with the Street Dogs on a record.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of all lined up, and then we ended up doing a tour with the Street Dogs back in 2010, the fall of 2010, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so I introduced the boys right away. We didn't like him and Haw play a bunch of local shows. We played a few local shows. In fact, one of our very first local shows was playing at the Plymouth Memorial Auditorium in Plymouth, Mass. I might have the name wrong. Memorial Hall. It's a legendary place. Bob Dylan has played there. Bob Dylan played there on his Rolling Thunder review back
Wow.
in the early '70s, and we supported Joe Perry from Aerosmith. And then a week later, we played another show with Joe Perry in Providence, Rhode Island. A friend of mine works for Joe Perry, so he kind of got us the gig, and it was incredible. Like, and people came up to us and they were, "Oh, we were at the show in Plymouth. You guys were great." Blah blah. And they were like our first shows. We were so excited with the first show that we forgot to load up our guitars. My friend goes, "Dude, you guys left all your guitars here."
Oh, no way.
And that's like a rookie mistake. So I must have been kind of lumped into those guys in the like euphoria of the first gig and all that. But anyway, because I know better. I'm a veteran. I've been on the road. I know to take the equipment with you when you leave. That's like step one in being in a band. But anyway, it was a and that was the beginning. And then we kind of just like took to it and started playing and doing shows and touring and making records and the whole nine yards.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the Curious Spell song as like the first song, because that's the one song off that album that really kind of hits you right away. It pretty much sucks you right in. It's definitely a good song.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So, all right. So, which brings us to the current solo projects. What changed with the way you wanted to express your music that brought you into uh, releasing solo albums?
Well, it kind of goes back to the Continental thing. We had done our last gig on in Germany on December 8th, 2018. I'm like a numbers and date freak, but although that's starting to wane as I get older. And it was a long, not painful, but pretty arduous, 10-week tour in Europe. And we do it in a small little minivan and play these small pubs, and it's fun and everything, but we had been touring for like 8 years straight, and we kind of decided we were going to take a year off after that tour. We didn't really say like a year, but we were just like not going to play.
Yeah.
And then that runs right into the pandemic. So it was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
We didn't know. We kind of like, we had no idea in December of 2018, that when we decided to take a break, that was going to lead into the pandemic. So then we basically just weren't playing. We didn't even do a show for like 3 years. And so I just keep playing and writing music because that's just what I do. That's my favorite thing to do on the whole planet. So, um, so I went in. What happened was, oh yeah, let me backtrack. Here's how the whole solo project started. Back in November of 2022, I went in the studio with my friend Dave Westner. He has a home studio now. He used to work at Woolly Mammoth, and that's where we did a bunch of records. And I've been working with him for 25 years. But I was going in to catalog a bunch of my songs, just like, I don't know, I'm at this like end stage of life, so to speak, thing where I'm like getting paranoid. Like I want to get all my music recorded. I don't know why, maybe for posterity or something. But, so I was going in to just sit down and play my acoustic guitar and record a bunch of songs, sing and play. And he was adamant about me playing to a click track. And for the people that don't understand the nuances of recording, a click track is basically just keeps a beat in your head through the headphones. And you might think that's an easy thing, or might make it easier to record, but when you're playing acoustic guitar and singing, it's hard for me. Like I have a really hard time because I'm focused on other things, and
Yeah.
that incessant like beat, it like it fucks me up. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, so I recorded this whole a bunch of songs. I went in one day and cut about, I don't know, 25 tracks or something. And then I took off to Florida because I always go to Florida every winter to be with my dad and help out, blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden, about a week later, Dave Westner sends me the music, but he's played drums to all the songs, and that was shocking. And then I was like, light dawns on Marblehead moment. Holy crap! That's why he wanted me to play to the click track, because he must have been hearing something in the songs that made him think that it was like worthy of being a band type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to it and I was blown away. Like I was so blown away, first of all, with the sound of the acoustic guitar. I sang great. And his drums, he's an incredible drummer, just right in that sweet spot. And I was tempted to put the music out just like that. Drums, acoustic guitar, and vocals. That's how good it sounded. And I loved the stripped down sound. So then I was like, whoa, wait a second. This is good, like real good. And I contacted Steven and I asked him if he wanted to play bass. And he was like, him and horn. Steven's like one of those guys. He doesn't even have to, he never practices. has a very blasé attitude towards the whole thing, which is good because the music business is brutal.
Yeah.
It'll destroy you. It'll tear your heart out and just crush you over and over and over. I mean, it all looks glamorous if you're a big act and you're in tour buses and making lots of money and all that. But even that part of it is hard too. The music business is really it's almost like a lose-lose proposition, but we do it because we love these songs we make up, and there is a certain camaraderie, and it does have its perks, and I mean,
Yeah.
it is a positive experience overall, but it's also a heartbreaking business. Anyway, so he's like, actually, he goes, those songs are a little too good for me. He was just making up bullshit excuses. He just didn't want to do it because it was going to involve him needing to go to a studio. And he goes, call Paul Yu. He'll play the bass. And so I called Paul Yu, and Paul Yu plays guitar with Continental,
Mhm.
and he's an incredible musician. And as we all know, really good musicians can play the fucking bass. It's not that big of a deal. That's no slight on bass players, especially really good bass players. But I'm just saying, I have
Yeah.
very simplistic, rudimentary songs. It's not hard to accompany them on the bass. But Paul went above and beyond, and he recruited a friend of his from Brooklyn, this kid named Sam, who's an incredibly melodic, beautiful bass player. I still have yet to meet Sam. I don't even know what Sam looks like. In the modern world, we don't, just like you and I doing this interview,
Yeah.
we don't need to ever need to see the other person. We don't need to be with them. We don't need to know who they are, what their habits are, nothing. Um,
Yeah.
you
I've
know, he
listened to.
seems like a good guy, but so anyway, they started. So I picked the best 12 songs that I thought were the best 12 songs that Dave Wester and I had recorded, and sent it off to Paul. They added bass and guitar and a lead electric guitar, which Paul Yu played, and then we mixed it, mastered it, and I put it out, and that's the Nowhere Man record. But I also had stockpiled, and then I went back in the studio because I was so enthusiastic about the sound we had developed. I have Dave just sent me the list of songs we've recorded so far, and we've recorded 45 songs, just him and I.
Wow.
And I'm going back in on March 13th, 14th, and 15th, and we're going to cut another 16 songs
Wow.
because I want to stockpile. And I've got this incredible, I'm in a huge writing
Yeah.
trend right now, but I always am, so it doesn't matter. But right now, I'm just making up song after song after song after song. It's just they come flowing out of me, and I want to get them down, and I want to play. I want my band. So I love this band. I love the sound we've established. I think it's clean. It's clear. You can hear all the lyrics. The
Yeah.
drums and bass are unbelievable. Like we've fallen into something, a certain sound that I've always wanted. I know a lot of people in music say that, this is the record I've always wanted to do. Well, this isn't really the record I've always wanted to do. I just got lucky, and it sounds fucking killer, in my opinion. It's not my old sound of, punk rock necessarily. It has punk rock, attitude, I think. But there's no overdriven guitars. It's one acoustic guitar and one very clean electric guitar, and that's all I wanted. I wanted it to be stripped down so you can hear everything. And I don't know. It's just so we're gonna take it and we're gonna go for it. We're already trying to line up tours. We're gonna put out. We're putting out a double release on March 1st, which you know about.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're spot on. Well, I mean, I know you're spot on with that album, and the way it sounds, and that's exactly what it is, and that's what I like about it. It's simple. There's not too much overlayered anything, and you really get the message across. The music is there, and you really kind of just feel the whole thing. And I can't wait to hear the new album, which the newest album now is called Coming Home, right?
Yeah, I didn't send that to you yet.
No, not that one.
Holy crap! As
Yeah.
soon as this is over, I've got to say you've got to listen to it before you want to hear it, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you're getting it right after this interview.
All right, awesome. Yeah, Nowhere Man I got, so that was good. So, but Nowhere Man got released briefly on your own, right? At first,
Right.
just briefly. Okay.
Yeah, because I had, Rumbar Records. They put out the last Continental record, and I had kind of propositioned them, but they had a lot of stuff going on, and I was like, well, I want to get the record out, so I just put it out on my own.
Yeah.
But then once they didn't even get a chance to listen to it, but my buddy Lou, who's the owner of Rumbar, he finally got to listen to both records, and he was like, let's do it. Let's put them both out. And he was like, mentioning all the songs that he loved, and that's what I look for in a label, somebody that actually likes the music. I mean,
And
um,
that's how the
he's
album hits me. It's like, wow, yes, this is great. It excites you, and that's awesome that's the same feeling he got from it. So that's good.
yeah,
Um, so did you know Lou at Rumbar before he's been doing
yeah.
Rumbar?
I've known Lou for 24 years.
Well,
The very first time I ever met him, it was like, I don't know, he was probably about 30 years old, but we had my band, the Shadow Blasters, who you actually saw, right?
yes.
Down in Providence one time.
Yep. That was a long time ago. Had a
Yeah,
broken.
we only played a handful of shows, and one of our shows that we played was supporting Cheap Trick at the Somerville Theater in Somerville, Mass, and Lou was there, and he just kept, I kind of heard of him, and I knew who he was a little bit, but he accosted me in the lobby, like down there where the merch was and everything. And he goes, dude, and he was just started talking about this one particular song on the Shadow Blasters album that we put out back in 2000, and he was like, I love that song a dime, and he was just going off on my career and everything, and for me, it's like that always makes me happy because I don't have a bunch of people doing that to me all the time. It's always like, even when we tour and we're in Europe and stuff like that, it'll be like one or two people that know my history, and they'll come up and they'll have all the records for me to sign, and it's really ingratiating. It's beautiful, really. I could imagine if there were like lines of like 200 people looking for autographs and all of that, that would probably get
Yeah.
draining after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, some guys are really good at it. My old buddy Kenny from Dropkick Murphys, he sits out on that stage for an hour or more after every show signing, and that's cool. And I would do that too, but I don't have to worry about that. And
Yeah.
so just the one or two fans that approach me, I love it, and they can be as enthusiastic as they want. They can, and I feel like it's almost like my duty to accommodate the one or two people that actually know who I am wherever I go, and I love it. So yeah, so I met Lou that night, and I was like, wow, that guy's crazy. I love this guy, and then Lou and I have just kind of been off and on in touch. Like when men get older, we don't hang out anymore. We're not just like, it's not like we're in junior high or high school and doing the hangout thing.
It's weird.
That would be weird.
Yeah. Um, that's exactly like the Shadow Blasters album. That's some of those songs just wail, and they're just like in your face right there, and it grips you into the song. And that's something I get out of it. So, and that's available still online, right? You can purchase that.
Yeah, and even more than that, I think, because next year is going to be the 25-year anniversary of that release, and Rumbar and Rick Barton, that's me. We're going to be doing a bunch of we're possibly going to remaster that record and
Ooh.
put it out with a bunch of additional tracks. What people don't know is that when I started that Shadow Blasters project, once again we recorded about 7 full-length albums that no one has ever heard. They're in the vaults.
And I was gonna get to that because that one time I saw you in Providence, there were songs that you played that I've never heard before.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and I do remember that. Yeah, that's pretty wild that you got that songs.
So
But
we're gonna try to re-release that record as a 25-year anniversary edition with a bunch of additional tracks, and see if we can get its due, because I like that record too. There's some great songs on there, and but the music business is hard. I don't want to keep going back to that, but it's like
yeah,
if you're just an independent artist putting stuff out and you don't have the backing, which is money, you're just not going to go anywhere. You're just not. There's very few bands that actually take off, as we say. There's always like Taylor Swift didn't just suddenly appear. I mean,
No.
Taylor Swift is a gifted, talented recording artist, but obviously there had to be a gigantic amount of money and push behind her to make
Oh,
her that popular. You know what
yeah.
I mean? So it's like a lot of people think, and I used to think this too, that all you needed was a great song. And but I've been in bands that have had great songs, and I know a lot of bands that have great songs that have gone nowhere. It's not all. It's just not that. It's not being discovered. It's not having a great song. And the one thing you learn about being in punk rock is there are punk rock bands. It started kind of like the original wave of punk rock. We didn't know what we were doing, but the second wave of punk rock, starting with the California bands, they kind of had a plan, and they developed an incredible scene. And I often cite, those that second wave of punk as being instrumental for my career, like for Dropkick Murphys. Like if we didn't have those people out there, Dropkick Murphys probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. Like
Oh, yeah.
those are the people. The label Epitaph, they embraced the Dropkick Murphys, and they already had this like incredible, you know, base of fans and excitement. When I first went out there with Murphys, I was shocked. It's like I thought punk rock was gone and over and dead, and I wasn't really into it anymore. I was going to be one of those guys, like only liking the music that I grew up with, Clash, Buzzcocks, and just shunning anything else. But I didn't even know there was anything else. By the early 90s, I thought punk rock was dead and buried.
I remember those conversations being had. Yep.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, there it was. And the style was even more outrageous and outlandish. And we'd be coming into a place in like San Diego to play a show at a club, and there'd be 500 kids, all punk rockers, looking good and stylish and lined up. And I'd be like, this is unbelievable. Like, I didn't realize it was happening, and it was just unfolding right in front of my eyes, and I loved it. I thought it was great, But those people like Fat Records, Epitaph, all of those labels out there, and that movement that they had, it was powerful, and it was good, and it was really good for music, and because whatever you want to call punk rock, um, there's some great songs, great songwriters, great bands historically, and it's not like punk rock essentially is an attitude and a fashion. It's essentially rock and roll music. Like punk rock isn't some new form of music. If you strip it down, like the Sex Pistols album is a rock and roll album. It's not a punk rock album.
Absolutely.
And so that and the spirit of punk rock, I think will always be there. And but I play something slightly different now. But I definitely owe everything to what little I have done and accomplished. I owe it to that movement because I've been part of both movements, and it's been great.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I love about punk rock and like the underground, like you were saying. Finding bands and musicians that have great songs and they don't go anywhere, and things because they don't have the backing and stuff at times, and it is strange what makes it click with a lot of people and what doesn't make it click with a lot of people. And you're right, I don't know if anyone has that answer.
No, we
But
don't have that answer.
no, but for those who don't know, you were one of the founding members of Dropkick Murphys, correct?
Oh yeah, I was
So
there from the very first practice.
yeah, yeah. And you were talking about like going out to California and playing to 500 people with all that, and yeah, that early stuff, and not taking away anything from Dropkick Murphys now because everything that they do, I love, I really enjoy. But when you guys first hit the scene, it just like your sound just took off. It was something fresh, something new, and I feel like moving up here to the Boston area now, I can kind of understand the feeling from your music and that early dropkick sound. How did that all start?
Oh my God, that is the most fascinating story in the history of rock and roll. And I don't know that Kenny's good, real good in many, many ways. But I don't know that he's drawn, you know, I don't know if they've done I think they did some kind of documentary, but if they were doing the real, full on documentary of that band, the origin of that band is the most fascinating story in the history of rock and roll. I mean, it really is. Because of the heights they've gone to and what they've achieved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me and Kenny and Mike, we belonged to this little club, a sober club. You know what I mean? I don't care about that stuff. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
You know, anonymity and all that. I mean, I don't drink. I haven't drank in over 30 years. And I met Kenny and Mike. I have no idea why I was drawn to them, or they might have even known that I had played music in the outlets. In fact, I think they did. But we became friends first, and for a couple of years, from like '93 until about '95, we were just hanging out, going to these meetings, and I had no idea they had any inclination towards playing music. And finally, they approached me, and towards the end of '95, around December or so, and you know, at that time, these two guys were 25-year-old men, and they had never played music. Okay,
Okay.
so right there, that makes it the most interesting story in music. Just that alone, that
Yep.
these two 25-year-old men, because the rest of us, we all started playing when we were 12, 13, 14 years old as teenagers, and then we get our heart broken early. So, you know, I often think maybe Kenny didn't have to go through that heartbreak of the beginning of it. But when we started, I taped the notes on the back of a bass for Kenny. But he had a business model and an idea, and he really just wanted to because he had got latched onto the California scene. He really liked these bands like Pennywise and Swingin' Utters and
Mm-hmm.
Guttermouth and a bunch of those bands. In fact, he introduced me to those bands because I didn't even know about those bands. So his main goal at the beginning was he just wanted to back up the Swingin' Utters on a show. Well, he did a lot more than that. But so they asked me if I would come down and show them some songs, and I'm like, oh God! Like first he came over and I put strings on his bass and I taped the notes to the back of his bass. I said, "This is a start, man." But then when they asked me to come down into the room, I hadn't been playing loud music for about 3 or 4 years. The outlets had disbanded at the beginning of '90. No, actually in like '92 or something. And I was like, I don't know, man. And the practice space that they found was this little room, a basement in a barber shop in Wollaston, Mass. And you had to go down through a hatch door to get down into the basement. We were just stuck in this tiny little room. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to drag out the old Marshall 412 cab and get in that room with a dirt floor and start making all this fucking noise with guys that can't even play music. This is going to be painful. But I did it, and I and I somehow got that amp down the stairs into the basement, and then it was me, Mike, and Kenny, and they started bringing in these drummers that couldn't fucking play, and I was like, so I have a guy singing that has never sung before in a band, a guy on the bass that's never played the bass, and drummers that couldn't keep a beat, and I was like, this is outrageous. I just kept thinking to myself, I got to get out of this, like. What did I get myself into? You know what I mean? I go, these guys have no fucking clue of what's going on and how and what this entails and the and but here I'll just fast forward real quickly. So from that day, within a year, we were signed to the biggest punk rock label in the world. How does that happen? How does that happen? Like my peers would kill their grandmother to be able to do that. So so anyway, finally I had to say, Kenny, these your buddies here that are coming down to play the drums, they're nice people, but I have to bring in a drummer that can at least keep a beat, or I can't do this. So I brought in my friend Billy Close, who was a guitarist and bass player with the Freeze, and he's a super gifted musician, talented guy. He can do everything, and he came down to play drums, and that's when the sound started to form. And at first, we were going to do. I was showing them some cover songs, which I'm not good at cover songs. I hate playing other people's music, and so me and Billy started like, I would be coming up with these chord progressions, and then I was telling Mike, I'd be like, just come in right here screaming. And Mike would come in screaming, and then I'd show Kenny the progression of the song. And shit, next thing you know, we had like 8, 9, 10 songs, and that was the Boys on the Dock EP right there. And I was like, wow, okay. And then Billy wasn't into it. Billy played 2 shows with us, and he just wasn't into it, and he quit. And so then I had to get another drummer. I was like, damn. I was like, I should have quit too, but if I had quit, there would be no Dropkick Murphys to this day. I don't think. Like, if at that moment I quit, Kenny would have just like probably abandoned the idea. He'd be like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. So thankfully I didn't quit. And we went and recruited our friend Jeff Erna. And Jeff had a practice space that was a little bit better than the one we were in. And then Jeff ended up being the drummer on that EP. And the rest is history, man. It was just, it was a whirlwind. But see, the thing is, once Kenny saw that there was potential, he started working overtime on a marketing plan, and that guy worked incessantly, making all the contacts. He contacted all the bands from California, put together a compilation record. I've Got My Friends, and we started going in and recording singles. And he had and he had the whole T-shirt thing and the brand and the Irish punk rock, and he developed all of it. And he was essentially a marketing genius, and I actually became jealous of his success, which is weird, but I did, because I don't know. I was just like, how did this guy do that? And then Kenny and I started butting heads over a bunch of things, because we were cramped. We knew we were going to tour, and we cramped in a van for 5 years, and we just didn't agree on a lot. And I was a prick to him. I should have been a more of a team player, but I don't know. I just didn't do things correctly. I fought him every step of the way, and that I'm always regretful for that. And I've apologized to Kenny for that, and he's made amends to me for the way he handled our relationship, and we're on good terms. In fact, I'll be seeing Kenny in about 10 days up in Nashville, and you never know, I could jump up on stage with the Murphys at the Nashville show.
That'd be something.
I love those guys, by the way, and I think, and a lot of my old friends, they say, "Oh, they suck now." And it's like, no, they don't. It's like, they're a great band that has been progressing for 30 years. A band can't do. There's only a few bands in the history of music, like the Ramones, AC/DC, that can basically keep putting out the same record over and over.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the Ramones and those bands aren't doing that anymore. But what I mean is, a good band progresses and changes their style over time, and is constantly changing. That's what a good band is, and that's what the Dropkick Murphys are. They're a great band, and I actually love to go see them. And I miss my old buddy Al up there, though. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the way the Murphys have progressed as a band. I mean, I don't listen to their music. I don't listen to a whole lot of music anymore, because I'm so focused on my own music. I'll listen driving down the road to something new, but for the most part, it's just, plus I have permanent tinnitus. I have like severe hearing loss. I have no high end frequencies anymore in my, I can't it's bad. So I'm kind of trying to salvage that for the end of my career.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's not the worst and most debilitating thing in the world. You know what I mean? I'm still in good shape, and I can move and do things, and I'm strong. So little
Yeah,
brain damage isn't going to kill me.
I got the tinnitus in the ears too, the hearing damage in left ear. Yeah, you're right. It's the high end too that bothers me. And then you get that music that just like you said we were talking about earlier, that just overlaying too much, and I can't focus on what the music is in those senses. Um, and
Right.
that was quite a lot. But and you've done more and more projects.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got Everybody Out.
Everybody Out was a great story too. That started in 2007, and speaking of the whole mine and Kenny's relationship coming full circle, I mean, it's not like we're asshole buddies and we talk every day, but certainly we message each other sometimes, and
Yeah.
we're very cordial, and I'm always glad to see him, and he seems happy to see me when he sees me. I saw them last March 4th in St. Pete, and he asked me to come backstage, and we had some nice talks, and but anyway, yeah, they actually took Everybody Out on tour on three long U.S. tours. One in '07 at the end of '07, and two in 2008.
Oh wow.
And those were great tours. I mean, really good tours. And Everybody Out did a lot of touring. We toured, on our own, just plowing across the U.S. several times and out with those guys. And we supported a few other bands from England, and that was a good experience too. Except once again, I didn't get along with another guy in the band, and I almost don't even want to mention his name, but he despises me to this day. And I've tried to reach out and make amends to him, but that ain't happening. He just does not like me. He grew to really hate me, and being in a band is hard. It's not easy, and especially when you have the two like-minded personalities clashing. It always comes down to that. The two leaders of the band end up not liking each other. Not always, but my experience is that way.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. People just don't click. You do it first sometimes, and it just kind of just you butt heads, and it is
Yeah, you
what it is.
click at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah,
Beginning, you're clicking because otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
exactly. And then yeah, I get you. So you've recorded with Street Dogs or helped produce some of the stuff in Street Dogs at times, correct?
Yeah. Well, let me go back real quick to Everybody Out. We put
Yeah.
out a great album. A great album. I hadn't listened to that album in years. It came out in 2008. It's on Tang Records. I think it's just self-titled. I'm
Yeah.
almost positive. But I listened to it about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. I can't remember. Somebody had put something up online, a song, and I clicked on it, and then I was like, "Whoa!" And then I listened to the album. I was like, "Holy shit! This is like interesting music. Um, Lyrically great. Uh, Sweeney sang his ass off, and the songs are just like quite diverse. And I was shocked at how good that record is. And highly recommend that one. Don't worry, I don't make any money off of these things. I just don't. And so I'm not pushing it for that. I'm pushing it for its artistic integrity. It is a great record, like really great. But anyway, yeah. So that as that was falling apart, and it only lasted a couple of years, the Street Dogs contacted me in '09 and wanted to enlist my services for writing and producing, and I was kind of psyched on that because I love Mike, and I love Johnny, and then I got to know Toby, and he's a great guy, and Marcus was fun, and Paul Rucker was a wild man on the drums, and I flew down to Texas. I think I can't remember when the first session was, but I went down there for like 10 days, and we started writing and jamming out at Johnny's compound, and it was great. We came up with some incredible songs, and we did about three of these pre-production sessions, and I had a blast. I mean, I love going around touring, making music. That's my thing. I don't like the business side of it, but I love the artistic side of it.
Yep.
And and finally in 2010, February of 2010, we embarked on the Blasting Room out in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we holed up there for a month, and we recorded that record, Street Dogs' self-titled album, Street Dogs 5, I guess, and that was fun, man. That was fun. That was an adventure too. Holy shit, those guys! It doesn't matter because every band is dysfunctional, but those guys were dysfunctional with a capital D, and not all in bad ways either. A lot of it's good. Dysfunction in bands is not all bad. See, I don't really believe in good or bad. I believe that everything is good and bad. I don't believe in good or bad. I believe in good and bad, and a lot of the Street Dogs exhibited a lot of that angst and tension, and I mean they were all out, like they were flat out like battlers with each other. I mean, they would, one day I'd look out and I'd see this fucking Rucker dragging Toby across the lawn by the scruff of the neck. I was like, oh shit, and and they'd attack each other,
Wow.
but like right in the middle of working on songs, all of a sudden one guy would be like screaming at the other guy, and the other guy would be screaming at him, and I'd be like, whoa, what is this? And it's like, and I'm not saying that I was the peacemaker, but I kind of was, and I'd have to rein it in, and but we made a great record, and
Yeah.
and all of that stuff doesn't matter because that's human emotion, the human ingredients that percolate to make something, and I don't even, and the only reason I would say that on the record is because so many people hide that bullshit and try to like paint a better picture, but I don't want to hide my history, and I don't even think they would mind if I brought up that they were a dysfunctional unit. They just were. So what? They made good music. People liked them. That's the way it is.
But what I find interesting always is that little bit of the backstory, and then you get to hear the music a little bit deeper than you did before, and you just get a better understanding of it and connection to it.
Yeah, and that is, and you bring up a good point, Brian, because that is the thing about music and being in a band. If you're in a local band and you get together twice a week at the practice space and you play one show every 3 months, I'm sorry, but that's not really being in a band. That's being like on a part of a bowling team, and it's good. And that band might be better than it. Like oftentimes, like we come into cities, whether I was playing on tour with the Murphys, Street Dogs, whoever, because I did do a little touring with the Street Dogs. Everybody out, whatever band I've been in, a lot of times the local bands like blow us away. They're way better. Like I'm not slighting local bands. I'm just saying that that a local band that does it that way, it's just not the same. And when you're in a touring band, holy shit, that's when the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's when now you're talking.
The
And
light.
but yeah, but see what, before I went off on that ridiculous tangent, the whole thing is at the end of the day, I hate that saying, by the way, but it, it becomes about the music. All of that stuff, the long drives, the fights, uh, the discussions, as my friends from California. One time we were in the studio with Continental. We were recording that record that
Yeah.
starts out with "Curious Spell," and and yeah, we're having a fight. My friend, the engineer from the studio, Chris Heckman, he goes, well, you East Coast guys call it a fight. We call it a discussion. And, like, I always remember that quote from him. But in the end, so you have all this stuff going on, but then when you put on those headphones and you're in that recording studio and you're doing that song that you worked so hard on to make sound great, you're gonna cast aside all that other bullshit and focus, and that's where it reigns in, and that's where you develop the bond, because it's like no matter what was happening, that's the thing that you've etched in history. So I can go back and listen to that and say, damn it, we brought that together. We did that. We. and I'm not even thinking about the fights. I mean, I mentioned that time that Rucker was dragging Toby across the yard because that was to me now that's funny. At the time it was rather shocking, but no one would ever forget that moment. But what I'm saying is, when it got down to it, we focused and worked really hard on that record, and it's a great sounding album.
Oh, gotcha. Nice.
Same thing with Everybody Out. Me and Sweeney had to cast aside our bullshit pettiness, and we knew we had a record to make. That's what it always comes down to. Knowing that you have this music, and when you get on stage or when you're in the studio, it becomes the music is greater than the personalities, and greater than the personalities bullshit, I
Yeah.
should say. You know?
I got one more, old project I was a little more curious about. I've listened to on Bandcamp, the FM 359. I
Oh,
don't,
shit.
yeah, I don't know too much about that or how that really came about.
Well, that was something that, once again, we recorded that out at Johnny Rio's compound. And I don't know, we had kind of like, it was, I don't know, when did we record that? 2012, 13, sometime around then? And I don't know, we just, Street Dogs was kind of in hiatus maybe, and we wanted to do this thing, and that's a great little record, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
Just how would you describe it for people that don't know? It's just acoustic
folk
folk.
Americana, kind of.
Yep. Cool.
And we enlisted our friend Hugh and Pete Sosa from the Street Dogs played drums. And this kid, I can't believe I would be drawing a blank on his name, came in and played some guitar. Halston Luna. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But and he was great. And we just had it's just some cool songs and a different styling for Mike to sing. Mike's a great singer, and I was always interested in challenging him to do different stuff. He's not like a classic singer. He's an interesting singer with a very powerful voice. So I don't think he's doing much music anymore, but he has a vast catalog of things that he's done, which is really all we can hope for is to have music that a few people appreciate it. I know that's cliche as fuck. You see a lot of bands say, whether it's 1 or 10,000, it's like I say, yeah, that's a good thing to say, but deep down, if there was only one, you wouldn't be able to do this anymore. So, but for the real true underground people like me and Mike, that one is important. It really is. Like when you approached me, and talked about my music, we use one of your quotes right now on our press release. I'll send that over to you, and I can truly say, and Mike could probably relate to this as well. We really do appreciate the 1 or 2 people, or 5 people, or maybe even 10 that love our music. It's fucking incredible, because when you've invested 45 years of your life into something, which I have, just having a couple of fans that will, like when you earlier in this interview described Curious Spell, like that gave me a really good feeling inside, like, wow. So when I sat on that couch that one day and came up with that little song, that impacted somebody.
Yep.
That's important. That's truly is what it's about. I mean, and it is weird that I get to say that without it being cliche, because in another 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be painting houses. I've already got my first few jobs lined up, and I'm going in the studio too. But I don't make money playing music. I just don't. So that makes me like the ultimate DIY personality. 45 years in, still doing it with no income from the music at all. None. Zero.
Wow.
So, that doesn't make me a hero or better than the other guy, but it makes me the genuine fucking article. And I don't even have tattoos. It just makes me the genuine article because no one would do that. I mean, no one that I know would do that. I've never met anyone that's done that. I'm the only person that does that on this entire planet that has invested 45 years of their life into something that has reaped zero benefit financially. Zero. Zero.
Yeah.
In fact, well, I've taken a tremendous loss because I finance all my stuff through painting, which is another unique thing about me. You know, if I'm going to tell the truth about the bad shit, then I have to tell the truth about the good shit. And I am very proud of how I go about my business. It might be a fool's errand. A lot of people might say this guy is out of his fucking mind, but I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that, like, right now I'm practicing for that record that I'm about to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think Nowhere Man and Coming Home are amazing records with some beautiful, poignant, unbelievable songs. But this next one, which I'm going to release in the fall, because I want to have 3 records come out in the same year. Like Kiss, their first 3 records. I used to love Kiss when I was a kid. The first 3 albums all came out within 18 months.
Oh,
3
wow.
albums. In the old days, that's how bands used to record.
Yep.
No band ever waited for more than a year to put out a record. You had to put out. So that's kind of the model I'm using. But what I'm doing right now is I have fine-tuned 16 songs. And I get up, and thanks to you, I missed it this morning. No, I woke up a little late, but I'm just kidding. But
Yeah.
what I do is I do my vocal warm-ups. I go to the gym every day. I'll do vocal warm-ups, and then I start working on these songs, and I sing them, and I work on them, every little nuance, and I'm playing that acoustic guitar. So that by the time I hit that studio a little less than a month from now, I will just go whoom, 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 right through the songs. And the engineer, he's a fast worker too, so he loves it. And but I won't blow him away because he's super talented. But that's like my goal. Like, can I blow this guy away? Like, and I don't use any notebooks. I don't refer to any lyric sheets. I know the songs so well inside and out because that performance on those couple of days, it might only be 2 days. I
Mm-hmm.
can probably bang out 16 songs in 2 days. That performance is of paramount importance to me. Like, it is so fucking important to me. And I have to deliver the goods. Like, because if there's nothing else that I stand for, it's the songs that I play and the music that I play. And and as an interesting aside to that, I used to be, like when I was a younger man, I used to date a lot of women for a nice way of putting it. But, over 10 years ago, I took a vow to never approach a woman on the road, one night stands, any of that stuff. Not for a morality issue. Um, Fuck, I say go for it. Fuck all you want. Do whatever you want. Anybody out there. Have fun. Enjoy life, especially when you're a younger person. Male or female. I don't fucking care. Everybody go wild. But for me, I saw that when I was chatting up women after a show, like I was still doing it in 2010 when Continental was touring with the Street Dogs. But I said, wait, this isn't, once again, not a morality issue,
Yeah.
mind you. Just for me, it was like, and I still chat up women incessantly. I just don't go about it through my music ever because I would rather talk. I need to talk to you at the show, and I need to talk to the other people that are interested in the music. That's one thing, but also like I'm doing my music that is very fucking serious to me. A disservice by strumming and then going and trying to pick up a chick. I mean, that is just not cool for me. It's cool for younger guys and anybody once again, I don't discourage that kind of behavior, but I don't do that. So everything is about, it's almost like I'm militant about this, but I have to be, because I don't have incredible natural music ability. Like if I didn't work on this music right now, I'm looking over at my guitar right over there. If I didn't do what I'm doing right now to do this recording, well, first of all, it would cost me a lot more money because I wouldn't bang it out as efficiently. But it just wouldn't sound as good. And I know the work that I put in now is going to pay dividends in a month from now. Like I know it. Like I already know how good it's going to sound. And I know the songs are going to be perfected to a T. I mean, perfected. And
That's
that's what I do.
yeah, that's awesome. Well,
How's that for a story behind the story?
that's great. It's definitely something. Well, if you want to tell one more story, when I saw the Continental play, you talked about the song "The Torch," and how that came about and how you wrote it. Would you mind telling that story again?
No, not at all. It was very similar to my experience yesterday. I don't know if you saw, I put a song up, and I was walking the beach yesterday, and the whole song flooded into my head. It's only happened that way maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire life, and The Torch was one of those songs where it was the beginning of 2000. I just married my beautiful wife Hannah, and we were living in North Weymouth, Massachusetts, and I was working on "Sing Loud, Sing Proud" with the Murphys, the third full-length record, and I was on a bus ride home from Quincy to North Weymouth. I think it's the 230 or the 238 bus. I'm not sure, the Hingham bus, but anyway, it's a short ride, 10 to 15 minutes. But I got on the bus and I looked across and I see this guy. He had like this tremendous overbite. He was dressed in like a this was like in March, I think, of 2000, and he had one of those like lumberjack coats on and one of those cool old hats with the ear flaps. I'll never forget this guy as long as I live. And he had one of those old lunch pails. I mean, like an old lunch pail from the 50s. And he was probably in his 50s, maybe 60. And I looked over at him and I was like, wow, look at that guy. That guy has been doing this for a long time. I just knew. And all of a sudden, and the first line came out, "Wash away all the lines in your face that now show how you've aged." And the song just started like coming into my head. And I wrote that whole song, like all the lyrics came to me. And this was kind of groundbreaking for me too, to make music like that. So I was like, whoa. And luckily I didn't have a smartphone at the time, so I couldn't do anything. I had to just memorize these lyrics in my head. And I was like, so I'm trying to memorize the lines as they're coming. Because I often say that I don't write the songs. There's some other force that makes up my music and my songs still to this day, because I swear to God, I just sit down and start strumming and the lyrics all come out. It just happens that way every single time. And I don't even question it anymore because there's thousands. I've written thousands of songs in the last 30 years. And I remember getting off. I was living at 17 Saunders Street in North Weymouth, and the bus dropped me off right on 3A, and I ran up the stairs. I had to get a pen and paper to start writing down those lyrics before I forgot them. I mean, I wouldn't have forgot them all, but the order wouldn't have been the same if I took any time at all. And I just ran upstairs. I just started writing them down. I got all the lyrics down, and then I looked over at the guitar on the stand. I was like, whoa. And I was like, okay, these lyrics are great. How am I supposed to make up a song to this? Because I had never done that before, ever. And I picked up the guitar, and I'm telling you, it's like a miracle. I mean, that song may not be Stairway to Heaven. I always cite Stairway to Heaven when I'm talking about some genius song, but I don't even like Stairway to Heaven. It's just that that's considered like, an epic in the annals of rock and roll history. I mean, I don't hate the song, but here and there with that song. But I looked over at the guitar and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I just sat there with it on my lap for a minute. And then I just started strumming the opening of the song. And then the lyrics just fit right in. And I was like, whoa. And then the song wrote itself once again. And I was just like, whoa, crap. I go, well, this has to be on the record that we're making. And I brought it into the studio. Kenny seemed to really like it. But at this point, me and Kenny weren't even talking. Actually, I didn't even, we would go in the studio separately. I'd go do my things. He'd go do his things. And eventually I just quit right in the middle of recording the record. And then, because I knew the relationship was fractured beyond at that point. And it was going to be me or him. And obviously it was his band more than mine. And I left right in the middle. In fact, I like to mention this too. So I cut the acoustic track for that song, and right at the end, on the very last chord, I break the E string. And if not that anyone would ever be able to hear that, but I don't even think I've listened to that version of the song once, maybe not. But they kept my acoustic guitar, and that was so symbolic, like that was the last thing I ever did with the band. That song, the broken string, walk out the door, and that's the end.
And and then you went into all your solo projects from there. And that is one hell of a working class epic song. It's
Thank you.
It's something that when you do listen to it, especially the versions you did with the Continental, it really hits you, and it's good, So
Thank you. Yeah, that's the other one. When every night we play, one or two people come up to me and tell me how significant that song was in their life, and inevitably, especially if they're drunk, they end up crying on my shoulder, and I'm here for that. I don't mind. I don't mind a few tears, and that's another beautiful feeling.
Yeah. All right. Oh, that was some stories you got there. That's absolutely wonderful. Let's just touch base real quick. You got the Nowhere Man and Coming Home solo albums coming out in a couple weeks. Is that right?
March 1st.
March 1st. They're coming out.
Mark your calendar. Yep. You're going to get a copy right now.
All right. Sounds excellent. And then you got a new one coming out later on in the year. In
the fall.
So, all right. Rick, it's been quite a conversation about the music. I've really enjoyed listening to your story, and I think many other people will too.
Yeah, thank you for being a great interviewer. You didn't get in the way. I learned. One more quick story. When I was in 7th grade, I was taking a 7th or 8th grade some English lit course, and we were supposed to go. Each kid was supposed to go interview somebody. My assignment was interviewing someone at the local Rockland, Mass paper. And but one thing I always learned, like I only remember a few things from school, and the criminology class, ignorance of the law is no excuse. I learned that. That's one thing I always remembered for some reason. And my teacher in that English class said, just remember, your job as the interviewer is to simply ask the question and then let the person you're interviewing do the rest of the work. You needn't interject. You needn't show them how smart you are and stuff like that. And I always remember that to this day. And that's why I appreciate the way you just interviewed. It was really, really nicely done. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, that was the point. I wanted to give you the voice of all this music, this whole history. So good deal.
All right. After the interview, Rick sent me the Coming Home album, and you will hear songs that hit you right at the very honest part of your heart, and the music tells you the meaning through the silent transfer of emotion. So make sure you check out any of Rick's past work, his new solo albums, Nowhere Man and Coming Home, via Rumbar Records on March 1st. You can also follow The Hardcore Record on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for listening.